The ship named Resolute cut silently through the void, its matte black hull reflecting the starlight of distant suns. Inside, Captain Orion Vell leaned back in his command chair with a smirk on his face and his boots shamelessly propped on the console. The ship's AI, a precise and humorless voice named Ara, flickered through the speakers. "Captain Vell, please remove your feet from the control surface. It is ... unsanitary." Vell grinned. "Come on, Ara. If the mission fails because of a boot print, we were doomed from the start." A chime interrupted their usual banter. The holographic screen lit up with the image of Admiral Brelenstern, silver-haired and never amused. "Captain Vell," the Admiral began without waiting, "you've been selected as humanity's envoy to the Theatron homeworld." Vell blinked. "The 10-foot-tall bug people with psychic armor? Queen Zelari herself has requested a representative. This is a delicate mission. Don't be yourself." "Noted," Vell said, forcing a smile. "No jokes, no boots on consoles. Got it. Do not fail, Captain. The Alliance depends on..." This, the screen flicked off. ARAS voice returned. "Coordinates received. Setting course for the Theatron system. May I suggest you wear formal attire for once?" Vell glanced at his wrinkled shirt. Yeah. Diplomatic pants it is." The Terran world of Netheris came into view like a jewel carved from shadow. Its twin moons cast soft blue glows on the planet's shimmering surface. As Resolute descended, Vell stared at the strange crystalline terrain. Bioluminescent rivers curled through jagged valleys, and strange trees pulsed with internal light. It looked like a dream sculpted from alien memories. When the ship landed, Vell stepped out into a silent plaza of translucent stone. Terran guards awaited Himtal, armor-clad beings with sharp chitinous features and glowing veins. Their leader stepped forward, his voice deep and harmonic. "You are the human." "I get that a lot," Vell said, trying to smile without making it a joke. "Captain Orion Vell, Earth's representative. I brought Pisand also breath mints. No reaction, you will follow." Vell followed the group through a passage of arching crystal spires, until they entered a massive chamber, silent and glowing with soft violet light. The throne room. She sat at the center, Queen Xelari, tall and graceful. Her form seemed carved from polished obsidian and wrapped in light. Her armor shimmered with patterns that moved like liquid. A crown of floating rings pulsed above her head, and her glowing eyes locked onto Vell's with unreadable focus. All the Terran around him dropped to one knee. Vell didn't, not because he meant to insult anyone, but because he was so distracted by the surreal beauty of the place that he forgot. A hiss echoed through the chamber. One of the guards stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Bow, human." Vell blinked and quickly dipped into what he hoped was a respectful bow. "Apologies. Humans don't do well with royalty. We're more into awkward handshakes." Then the Queen stood. She approached. The entire room tense, and then she extended her hand. Everyone froze. The air felt heavy, expectant. No one moved. Vell, sensing an invitation rather than a trap, stepped forward and gently took her hand. It was cool, smooth, and pulsing with faint energy. The chamber gasped, an entire alien court holding its breath. "You are not like others," she said, her voice like chimes echoing in a cave. "Why did you touch me?" He smiled, not letting go, "Because no one else did." The Queen tilted her head. "And what if touching the untouchable meant your death?" Then at least I would have died shaking hands with a queen, Vell replied, half joking, half serious. There was a pause, a long one. Then her lips curled ever so slightly. Amusement, double quotes perhaps, ... This is the beginning. The room, still tense, seemed to vibrate with something unspoken, fear, disbelief, curiosity. Vell stepped back, but the moment hung in the air like gravity. As the queen returned to her throne, the guards whispered, in a language Vell didn't understand, but it didn't matter, because the queen's gaze lingered on him, and something told him this was only the beginning of something much, much bigger. Captain Orion Vell wasn't used to silence that felt like a conversation. The Turenne palace was grand and beautiful, every wall glowing faintly with moving light. But it wasn't the design that unsettled him, it was how the queen hadn't stopped watching him since their first meeting. Not with anger, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. After the handshake in the throne room, he had been led to private chambers meant for honored guests. The bed was too soft, the food glowed, even the air seemed to hum. Vell lay on the bed that night, staring at the crystalline ceiling. "Ara," he whispered into his wrist device. "You there?" "I am always here, Captain," the AI replied. "You ever feel like you're in the middle of a test and nobody gave you the instructions?" "The Queen's behavior is unexpected," Ara admitted. "No Turenne ruler in known history has initiated physical contact with a human." "Not even once." Vell sighed. "Yeah. I touched her hand. Now I'm probably part of some sacred prophecy." "You joke," Ara said, "but I have analyzed Terran body language since your encounter. They were not simply surprised. They were terrified." Vell closed his eyes. "Terrified of what?" "Me. Terrified of what she did." Morning, or what passed for it, on Nethris came with a soft chime and a knock at his chamber door. A Terran guard stood tall, motioning for him to follow. No words were spoken. Vell was led through curved hallways until he entered what looked like a command center, a large room filled with floating maps, pulsing lights, and unreadable symbols. Queen Zelari stood in the middle. He walked toward her slowly. "Good morning," he said. "Or is it evening? Do your days even? You slept," she said, interrupting him. He nodded like a rock, a nervous, confused rock. "You touched me yesterday," she said calmly. "You did so without fear. Do you understand what that means?" "Honestly," he said, "no idea. No being has laid hand on the royal line in over 1,000 rotations," she said. "It is forbidden, even for our own." Vell rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, I'm not great at rules, especially when no one tells me them beforehand." "Yet you live," the queen said, "which means something ancient has allowed it." She turned and gestured toward a map of swirling stars. "We are not only warriors, we are guardians of the echo flame, the memory of our people. It responds to connection. And last night, it responded to you." Vell stared at the map, trying to follow. "Are you saying I passed some cosmic compatibility test?" "I am saying you are different," Zelari said, "and I intend to find out why." She waved her hand, and the room dimmed. A platform rose from the floor, revealing a glowing stone shaped like a spiral flame. It pulsed with quiet energy. "This is the flame," she said. "Few are allowed to stand before it. Fewer still survive touching it." Vell took a step back. "Define survive. It doesn't harm physically, but it reveals the truth inside. Many minds break under its weight." He glanced at the stone, then at her. And you want me to touch it? I want to see what you truly are. Vell took a deep breath. If I go insane, I want it on record that this was not my idea. He reached forward. The moment his fingers touched the flame, a flash of light swallowed him. Suddenly, he wasn't in the room anymore. He stood in a field of stars. Endless, quiet. Voices surrounded him, some in languages he didn't understand, others familiar but warped. Memories he hadn't thought about in years appeared like ghosts. His parents, his first squad, the battle where he nearly died, the moment he signed up to represent humanity. Then a voice deep and echoing spoke to him. You are the first to see without fear. Why? Vell's mouth moved on its own. Because fear isn't meant to stop us, just slow us down. The light faded. He was back in the chamber, knees weak, sweating. Queen Zelari stood there, unmoved. You survived, she said. Not my best idea, Vell muttered, but I'm still breathing. She stepped closer. The flame accepted you. That has not happened in many cycles. He met her eyes. What does that mean? It means, she said, you are no longer just a guest. You are now part of something greater, whether you want to be or not. Vell tried to smile, but it came out shaky. And here I thought I was just here for peace talks. The Queen's. The voice was low. You are here to change everything. And for the first time, Vell felt something stir inside him, something more than sarcasm or charm. It was purpose, and he had no idea what to do with it. The days that followed moved like echoes through glass clear, sharp, and strangely heavy. Captain Orion Vell was no longer treated like a guest, nor was he treated like a stranger. The Terran didn't speak much, but their behavior had shifted. Where once there was distance, now there was careful observation. Everywhere he walked, eyes followed. But it was Queen Zelari who watched him most closely. They dined together under a floating canopy of light. They walked through gardens that pulsed like living music, and they sat in silence more often than not. She asked questions in slow, deliberate ways, as if trying to understand not just his words, but the shape of his thinking. What do humans value above all? She asked one evening as the twin moons rose behind her. Vell chewed on something that resembled glowing jelly and shrugged. Freedom, mostly. We screw a lot of things up, but we really like making our own choices, even if they're bad. Zelari studied him, that is. Inefficient, sure, he said, but it's ours. She didn't reply for a while. Then, softly, our people were shaped in fear. Strength was our only shield, but fear makes walls, ... not bridges. Vell looked at her across the alien table, her face lit by bioluminescence and moonlight. Maybe that's why I'm here. Maybe I'm your hammer or your chisel. She tilted her head. You speak in riddles. I speak in metaphors, he said. We humans do that a lot. It keeps us from saying the hard thing directly. The Queen paused. Then say it directly. Do you fear me? Vell leaned forward, elbows on the table, unafraid. No, but I'm afraid of what I might feel for you, because I don't know what it means. The words hung in the air, heavy, honest, unmistakable. Zelari didn't move, but something behind her eyes flickered. Not rejection, not confusion, something deeper. That night, Vell lay awake in his chamber, staring at the shimmering ceiling. Aras' voice buzzed softly in his ear. Captain, you are demonstrating patterns of elevated emotional response. Gee, thanks, Doctor. She. is an alien monarch. Our alliance is fragile, I know. She is also not unaffected by you. Vell sat up slowly. What do you mean? There has been a shift in her chemical responses when near you. Heart rate, temperature, even her pheromone emissions. Vell blinked. She likes me. She is curious, drawn to you. It is not quantifiable in simple emotion, but the pattern suggests attachment. Vell smiled despite himself. Guess. The galaxy really didn't see this coming. The next morning, he was summoned to the Queen's private observatory. It wasn't large, but the walls were clear crystal, giving them a view of the stars that stretched like rivers across the void. She stood there, hands behind her back, as he entered. You came, she said. You called, he replied. Zelari turned to face him. Do you believe destiny is a straight path? No, Vell said honestly. I think it's a field. You walk until you find something that feels like home. She stepped closer, and if that home is where you never expected to be. Vell looked at her, then not just her form, but everything behind her expression. The loneliness, the pride, the curiosity, the quiet ache she didn't know how to name. Then I'd say the universe got it right, even if it surprised both of us. She reached for his hand again. This time he didn't hesitate. Their fingers touched not as a symbol, not for diplomacy, but something deeper, unspoken, electric. All around them, the stars burned on in silence, and somewhere deep in the Terran palace, the ancient flame flickered in response. A new connection had been made, and neither human nor alien would ever be the same again. Captain Vell never thought he'd see the day when walking through an alien palace felt familiar, but now it did. The guards still stared at him with unreadable eyes. The advisors still whispered when he passed, but no one blocked his path anymore. No one doubted he belonged there. At the Queen's side, he had become something more than a guest, not quite royalty, not quite soldier, something in between, and it terrified him. The Queen didn't speak of it. She didn't explain what it meant to hold hands in front of her court, or what her people whispered when she allowed him to stand beside her throne. She simply walked with him through gardens made of glowing petals, through libraries that pulsed with living memory. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they just breathed together in the silence. You never ask for permission, she said one evening as they watched a storm roll across the skies from a balcony. Vell glanced at her. Would it matter if I did? It would show restraint, he chuckled. Maybe I never learned that. Or maybe I just think some things are worth risking a little disrespect for. Zelari's gaze remained steady. And what if the risk is losing everything? Vell leaned closer. Then I'd say losing everything is better than never trying to hold something real. She didn't respond right away, but her hand brushed his light as a breath and didn't pull away. Later that night, the Queen summoned him to the council chamber. The mood was colder, the circle of advisors tight with tension. He knew it before anyone spoke. Something had shifted. One of the elders stepped forward. Your Majesty, the alliance weakens us. The human's presence causes confusion. Among our people, Vell raised a brow. Nice to meet you too. Another counselor hissed. His kind does not understand our ways. He taints your judgment. Queen Zelari stood. Her voice cut through the room like wind across glass. Enough. All voices fell silent. I will not explain myself again, she said. The flame has chosen. He lives because he is not like the others. But he touched you, the first elder said. And you allowed it. Zelari turned slowly to face him. Yes, I allowed it. Because he sees me not as a symbol but as a person. The room shifted. Whispers fell away. Then Vell stepped forward. Not because he had the right, but because he needed to. I'm not here to take your crown, he said. I didn't come to rule or break traditions. I came because someone had to walk through that door and not look away. He paused. You call it weakness to feel. I call it courage. For a long time, no one moved. Then, slowly, one of the younger guards lowered his weapon and bowed. The ripple started small, but it spread. Others followed, one by one. Queen Zalari looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't seem like a queen of ancient bloodlines. She seemed like someone finally breathing. That night, in the quiet glow of the palace gardens, she spoke gently. Do you know what they'll say about you in 1,000 years? I hope it's something flattering, Vell said, smiling. They'll say a human touched the queen, she said, and instead of punishment, she touched him back. They stood in the soft light of alien stars, and without ceremony, without audience, she leaned close forehead to forehead, a gesture, older than language, trust, and maybe something deeper beginning to bloom. The celebration began with silence, no fanfare, no music, just the glow of 1,000 lights blooming in the night sky over Netheris Captain. Orion Vell stood beside Queen Zalari on the grand terrace overlooking the capital. Below, the Terran. People gathered not in fear or confusion, but in quiet awe. It was the first shared gathering between their kind and his. A moment long prophesied, but never believed. He didn't wear his military uniform tonight. Instead, he wore formal robes stitched by Terran artisans woven with shimmering threads that responded to his heartbeat. They called it a sign of openness, of being seen. Zalari stood tall beside him, draped in robes that pulsed with soft lavender light. Her crown, made of floating rings, had dimmed less a symbol of power now, and more one of peace. Are you ready? She asked. Vell exhaled slowly, as ready as any guy about to be called a symbol of intergalactic cooperation could be. She turned slightly. Do you regret touching me that day? He smiled, not for a second. Then the queen stepped forward, addressing the crowd in her language. Her voice was calm and rich, each word layered with meaning. Vell didn't catch the exact translation, but he didn't need to. He felt it in the way the crowd responded, heads bowed, antennae lowered, bodies swaying gently in agreement. When she finished, she reached for his hand. The second time wasn't a shock. It wasn't a test. It was a choice. This time, he held it tighter, together. They descended the steps into the heart of the crowd. Terran warriors lined the path, standing not as guards, but as witnesses. At the end stood a pedestal, carved from living crystal, glowing with a soft blue flame, the flame of unity, a new tradition, born from two unlikely beings who chose connection over fear. Vell and Zalari stepped forward together, placing their hands over the flame. It flared brighter, casting a halo of light across the crowd in that moment. Something shifted. For the Teatran, it was the breaking of a wall that had stood for centuries. For humans, it was proof that even in the farthest corners of space, the things that mattered most, trust, hope, connection, still had power. Later, as the stars turned above them and the celebration faded into soft murmurs, Vell and Zalari stood alone again on the same terrace. You know, Vell said quietly, I think I was supposed to just shake hands, trade treaties, and fly home. Zalari's gaze didn't leave the horizon. Instead, you changed the course of two civilizations. He looked at her. Not bad for a guy with a bad sense of formality. She turned to him, and her expression softened into something rare and quiet. You are no longer just a visitor, Orion. You are chosen. He raised an eyebrow. Chosen sounds heavy. It is, she said, but you do not carry it alone. The twin moons hung low in the sky, casting their pale light across the palace. In that soft, quiet hour, two beings so different, yet inexplicably connected stood side by side, and the universe, ever watching, adjusted its course, because one human dared to reach out, and the alien queen, once untouchable, reached back. The end.